Welcome to Product Mastery Now, where we simplify the 7 knowledge areas for product mastery. These are the product management practices that elevate your influence and create products your customers love. To see all 7, go to productmasterynow.com. I'm Chad McAllister, a product management professor, practitioner, and your host. Thanks for being here. This episode is part of a special series I'm doing to share the 7 knowledge areas for product mastery. In the previous 4 episodes, I addressed the areas of innovation management, strategy, portfolio management, and process. The 5th knowledge area is product design and development. By the end of this episode, you'll know several tools for creating ideas for products and product features, as well as creating concepts that you can validate with customers to know if what you're planning is what your customer needs and what they actually want before you waste your time developing something that your customer doesn't want. Also, this episode is in a masterclass format, so there's slides that go along with what I'm talking about. To see the video of this episode, go to YouTube and search for Product Mastery Now. As a reminder, the 7 knowledge areas for product mastery are based on PDMA, that's the Product Development and Management Association, their body of knowledge. And PDMA has an annual conference coming up for product managers, leaders, and innovators. I love this conference, and I go to it every year that I can. This year is going to be in St. Louis, Missouri on September 14th to 17th. Get the details by going to pdma.org. I hope to see you there. The design and development knowledge area is our focus. It contains 4 topics for design and 8 for development. And these topics are, for design, ideation, concept design, embodiment design, and tools to assist with embodiment design. Development consists of initial specifications, quality function deployment, QFD, design of experiments, usability testing, performance and endurance testing, quality assurance, design for manufacturing and assembly, and design for sustainability. Obviously, some of those aspects won't be applicable to all sorts of products. Certainly depends if we have something to manufacture or if we're just developing something as a service or as software. Let's start with some context for the tools that are in this knowledge area. Regardless of the specifics of your idea to launch product process, something I talked about in the last episode, the common activities typically contain these sort of elements: discovery, validation, then development, test, and finally launch. Now, you may use different names and more or fewer stages, but those are the essential elements of the work that we have to do in translating an idea into an actual product that customers can get their hands on. I'm going to focus on the discovery aspect, which is how we get ideas for creating a new product or improving an existing product. This is called ideation. And when you hear the word ideation, simply think idea generation. A more complete definition of ideation is the creative process of generating, developing, and communicating new ideas, where an idea is just a basic element of thought that can be either visual, concrete, or maybe even abstract. It's an essential part of the product process and where we start in the front end of innovation with the development of ideas for product concepts or new product features. Specifically applied to product development and management, ideation includes all those activities and processes that lead to creating broad sets of solutions to customer problems. And these techniques may be used in the early stages of product development to generate the initial product concepts, maybe in those intermediate stages for overcoming implementation issues, and then, of course, in later stages for planning launch and the post-mortem or the after project evaluation stage to better understand success and failure in the marketplace. Here are some of the many ideation tools that are available. And I'm right now looking at a slide, if you're not seeing this on video, of several tools. I'll real quickly list them. That's Scamper, brainstorming, mind mapping, storyboarding, brainwriting, 6 thinking hats, Delphi, ethnography, a day in life, empathy analysis, personas, and journey maps. And these tools are applicable in different instances, but being aware of them is certainly very important to you as a product master and doing the work towards product mastery. I'm going to talk through several of them. The first tool I'll discuss is Scamper, which utilizes verbs as stimulus for us to remember what to do. Scamper is an acronym, and it helps us take ideas and come up with ideas maybe for existing products or new things we might do as well. The acronym is simply Scamper, SCAMPER. The S stands for substitute, the C is for combine, the A is for adapt, the M is for modify, the P is to put to another use. The E is to eliminate. The R is for reverse. Now, this is a very old tool. It's a very simple tool, but it is a tool to help us get out of our current way of thinking and maybe just approach the context in a different way. There's similar approaches that go by different names as well. And I've seen this type of approach used in terms of design heuristics, rules of thumb, applied to physical products, including furniture. And if you want to explore this idea of design heuristics further, a related tool has been designed simply called design heuristics, which was the topic of an interview I did on my podcast. You'll find that at productmasterynow.com/050. Again, the kind of rules of thumb to help you think about a problem in different ways and approach it from different perspectives. Next, let's address brainstorming. Brainstorming is a very common technique. We all are probably aware of this. Typically, we get a small group together, maybe 6 or 10 people, and we encourage them to generate a large number of ideas. And there's usually some ground rules that go along with this, right? Like people can speak freely without fear of criticism. Frequently, ideas are blended or built on to create another good idea, this so-called synergy approach, 1 + 1 = 3 sort of idea. And this is a divergent to convergent tool, meaning that it begins with lots of idea creation to help stimulate the thinking and diverge from maybe the core topic to sometimes wild, crazy places to go. But then later, we are converging and synthesizing those ideas to come together on something that is actually actionable for us. And while this is a frequently used tool for brainstorming efforts, it we have a lot of research that suggests it's not very effective for us, actually. So there's a addition to this called NGT, nominal group technique. And when NGT was applied, first it was considered the gold standard for generating the most number of valuable ideas. And it simply takes brainstorming and adds one step to it. There's some other things we might do, but the one I want to focus on now is it adds one step to it, which is to let people have individual reflective time on the question being asked, what we're starting the brainstorming with. So for example, if we say we're designing a improved television set that we want more color clarity on, and that's the purpose of our brainstorm session. First, everyone would take, say, 3 to 5 minutes and write down their ideas and literally write them down on a piece of paper so they have time to individually think. And NGT found that by adding this step to traditional brainstorming, it helps everyone focus on the problem without, in some sense, the distractions of others talking right now. This is really good for people that might be more introverted that do need that quiet time to think. And it just helps everyone be able to generate better ideas. So if you're not doing this already, add that to your brainstorming activity because you'll find providing everyone a few minutes of time to first make their list of ideas before they start sharing them and building upon them, you'll end up with better information altogether. The next tool is mind mapping. To use this tool, you start with a key phrase, question, or a word in the middle of a page or on a whiteboard if you're doing this as a group. And then you work out from this point to connect to new ideas in multiple directions, kind of building a web of relationships. And some mind maps are very artistic. I'm not that person, so I just do stick figures at best since I have no artistic capability at all. So I just stick with bubbles and words, but if you're artistic, certainly add that in. And I do have a slide if you're watching the video of what a mind map looks like, but it is that central idea, and it's just a graphical form of an outline. Some people think better in this way, instead of a more linear top-down sort of approach. And I do find it's a really useful tool for collecting thoughts from a group when you're collaborating together as well. Storyboarding is a great tool that I like to use as well. It's helpful for thinking through a problem or process in terms of a story, like the events that are going to take place. And what you do is you focus on the development of the story, possibly about a consumer's use of a product to better understand the problems or issues that might lead to a specific product design. And storyboards can be text-based, but they tend to be very visual, conveying the story in pictures. And one picture or graphic is used for each element of the story, with additional storyboards added to capture other key elements. Typically, we're showing a by progress of time through a customer's day or life interacting with a product. Very useful way of understanding more about what the customer is dealing with. Another tool is brainwriting. It is a variation on nominal group technique for brainstorming, and it uses the same idea of starting with individual work with a slight twist. Instead of asking participants to verbalize ideas as we did in traditional brainstorming and brainwriting, They are first asked to write down ideas pertaining to a specific problem or question. After writing for 5 minutes, each participant passes the ideas to someone else. And this person adds to the list for 2 to 3 minutes. And the process continues, and each person passing the list to someone else then. And after maybe 15 minutes, after you get the list around to enough people to add ideas, you collect all the lists together, and then the group discusses together what has been generated. And if you haven't tried brainwriting yet, I encourage you to do so. Groups typically find it much more effective than traditional brainstorming, and you'll get more done in less time, and I would think have a more positive group experience. People tell me they really enjoy doing the brainwriting. If you're familiar with Delphi, this is a physical in-person way to do that, and we'll talk about that too in a moment. But let's move on to 6 thinking hats. And this tool is really encourages team members to separate thinking into 6 clear functions or roles or perspectives. And each role is identified with a color symbolic thinking hat, as if like we're putting on this hat and becoming this person or taking on this perspective at times. It's a useful way to help examine a problem or a topic from multiple perspectives. And each person involved adopts one of the perspectives. And let's just go through those 6 hats. And you can do this. This could be done if you have 6 people per se or more in a group, with each one taking that perspective. But groups tend to find it works better and they enjoy it more if everyone takes on the same hat at the same time and talks through the 6 different perspectives together. So first up, we have the white hat, which focuses on facts. So we look at everything through a factual lens. The yellow hat, which is looking at the positive values and the benefits that might apply. The black hat, this is the devil's advocate position, right? Looking for problems or pitfalls. The red hat expresses emotions. Do we like this? Is it giving us energy? Is it draining us? What are the fears involved, etc.? The green hat is for creativity. We're looking for new ideas, possibilities, alternatives, that different thinking, maybe the out of box thinking. And the blue hat is controlling, ensuring that an appropriate process is in place, that what we're coming up with can actually get done, and we have a process for managing this. So 6 thinking hats, again, an ideation tool for helping us to look at a problem or a topic from different perspectives and maybe get out of the way we typically think about things. Okay, on to Delphi. And I mentioned that brain writing is kind of like this for a group. Delphi is really meant to take advantage of experts in a more virtual environment, a panel of experts that could be anywhere in the world. And these experts independently suggest what the future would hold regarding a specific topic. It's really good for kind of scenario planning or to get the insights from different experts. And the problem we ask them to then provide feedback on that problem. And the way that Delphi typically works is we can do this by email. Simply email out to a panel of experts what the problem is, what we need help with, maybe a future scenario, where do we see things going in the next 5 years per se. And then we get the feedback from all of them. We synthesize that together. We send that back out to everyone through email. We ask them to make it better, provide their comments on that, get that back again, synthesize. And usually after 2 rounds, we have really good, solid information based on the insights from experts. Delphi works really well if indeed you have experts that have applicable insights, that we're not asking them something that is outside their area of knowledge or expertise. On to ethnography. This is one of my most favorite tools. I've used it successfully many times to uncover what I believe are insights that I don't know we would have gotten any other way. Like we would not have got them simply through interviews. And someone may argue, well, you just need to be a better interviewer to get those insights. But ethnography is a well-worn tool. It's been used many times. And so it's really just based on observing users in their natural environment that's relevant to your consumer research. So say, for example, we're looking at maybe a kitchen appliance product or maybe a software system to help manage a kitchen better. And so what we would do is we would go to a appropriate kitchen. If it was for a restaurant, maybe a commercial kitchen, and we would observe how people are interacting with what we need. How are they getting their job done? If we're looking at new appliances, we're watching them do their job. And at the end of watching them, making some observations, making notes about what they're doing, probably some sketches along the way. Certainly we can ask questions as well and incorporate ethnography, user observations with interviews. But it is I would use ethnography in interviews in a heartbeat if I had to uncover new insights about customers' unmet needs, because it just works very well, at least for me, to get that done. Another tool, we can call it a day in the life. And this is a method that uncovers routines, behaviors, circumstances that customers face when experiencing products and services, when trying to solve a problem themselves, when using something maybe a competitor has. It allows for identification of the individual's activities and challenges and the emotions that go along with that too. So again, it is involving user observations to understand this. We can get people to do this for us remotely by just them taking video on their phone and then submitting that as a research tool. Storyboarding complements this well because we're looking at the day in the life of a customer, and then we can capture the key moments of that through sketches and storyboarding. And we might, if they're doing video, or if we're taking video, if we're allowed to do that, or they're doing it remotely for us, so those pictures from the video can become part of that storyboard as well. That is a useful collection of tools then. I want to go back to empathy and really focus on all of these ideation tools should have this aspect of understanding our customer more deeply, empathizing with the customer, right? And this is a tool that we see in other innovation, other product frameworks like design thinking. Regardless of what ideation tool you're using, if you're working with customers, empathy helps you to make a connection and more deeply understand the impact of the problem they have, right? To really understand the customer's plight and why something is frustrating, why something is producing tension for them, why there should be a better way that hasn't been provided yet. The product designer needs to be immersed in the user's world, our customer's world, to understand their problem. And then we're able to propose solutions, right, from the perspective of the customer. We don't want to start creating a new product or making a product better based solely on our organization's perspective. And that tends to happen over time, that the customer they're kind of taken away from the process over time. We really need to be engaged with the customer, understanding the problem they have from their perspective. That's empathy. And so just keeping that in mind, empathy analysis is really important for us. One thing that can help a little bit with that, with understanding customers better, is personas. Some organizations love personas, some product teams love them, others despise them. Let's talk about them regardless. A persona is simply a fictional character that's built based on interactions with real customers. So these customers become typical users, or what I sometimes call the ideal customer, enabling the product team to better understand the customers who will be using the product. And the personas are described using demographic, behavioral, attitudinal, lifestyle, and preference information, kind of like we would think about creating a market segment. And later, these characteristics are used to identify possible market segments themselves, right? The same tools certainly apply. And I found an example from HubSpot. So if you're looking at the slide version of this on the YouTube channel, you'll see this. HubSpot is a marketing and sales software company. And they have Sample Sally. I often come across personas that have some kind of alliteration like that. So Sample Sally is the head of HR. And in the persona, we collect additional information about her to create a more clear picture of the ideal customer, including demographic information as well as other identifiers like, hey, Sample Sally has a clear demeanor. And she also likes to receive collateral that is mailed and printed, better format for her. The persona should present that information that is useful to anyone working on the product about our ideal customer, right? So we're collecting information that is relevant for that task, right? We're creating something new to help this customer. So we want to put it in that context. For Sample Sally, this might be her goals, what she's trying to accomplish, the challenges she's dealing with, and then how we help her, right? Kind of a vision for our work that we can do. And real quotes from customers certainly help round out a persona, and maybe some common objections as well that she would express. And the core marketing messages come out of a persona. How are we going to focus on addressing her needs and make her feel like we have connected with her? So the core marketing messages, maybe an elevator pitch, might be helpful for this as well. And while personas are useful for product teams, like I said, some teams love them, some hate them. I find in general, could they feel restrictive because they're so focused on a person. But when a team is kind of struggling and not knowing who are we solving for, right? What problem are we dealing with, and who has that problem? This is a good way to, at least in the early stages of product work, to understand where we're moving, right? To make this real to people, to identify the customer. And it should be a real customer, someone we have uncovered through customer research. But I find personas, if we just do what I just described, that's pretty standard for personas, that they kind of fall flat if that's all we do. In the last episode, I described the jobs to be done tool, and applying jobs to be done to personas moves them from a representation of a customer to really adding clarity about the customer segment that we're serving, right? We're not just addressing sample Sally, right? We're addressing a group of people who have the same problem. And that's expressed by the job to be done, right? That's more clearly expressed by that emotional, certainly the functional job to be done, the emotional job, as well as the social job, what they want to accomplish. So adding that to our personas, I think, is very important for us if we're going to use a persona tool. Okay, let's talk about customer journey maps a little bit. And I have this is almost worth going to YouTube just to look at this, if nothing else, a slide up of what a customer journey map looks like for a child experiencing getting an MRI. So going to the hospital to have to get MRI scan done. In general, a journey map is a flow chart for all the actions and behaviors the customer takes with interacting with the product or service, right? Whether it's ours we're trying to provide or competitor or whatever the job is they're trying to get done. The interaction moments are referred to as touch points, and the map includes the emotions that are triggered as the experience evolves. And I also make note of all the visible interactions the customer has during the journey, right? Those people that they're interacting with and the things that the things that the customer also interacts with. We can call those kind of the front stage or the on-stage experience. And then we have the backstage, which are the supporting elements, which are not the things the customer interacts with, but the things that are necessary for delivering that experience or service. So it might be the things that the people the customer interacted with, in this case, like the doctor and the person and the kid's mom and the nurse at the hospital. So those elements that have to exist for the service itself, for the product to be able to exist. So that's a customer journey map, and it's a great way of mapping out how someone's feeling about their experience trying to solve the problem, trying to use a product, whatever the case is. In this MRI example, this was just a tragic story of how many little kids they just struggle so much getting an MRI scan done because they walk into the room and it looks big and scary and like this machine is going to swallow them. And the majority of kids have to receive sedation because of fears about this. And going through this experience, the MRI designers realized they could change not physically the machine, because we have physics involved and we can't change how MRIs work, at least not today, but they could change the experience that the child is dealing with. And so if you've been in a children's hospital, you may have seen this. So that this customer journey map and elements of design thinking were used to completely change the experience. So now kids are expecting to be part of a story, like maybe a pirate ship story. And from the time that they hear that they have to go get the MRI done, they're brought into that story. Maybe they're given a backpack of items that they will need to complete this journey to be a pirate on a pirate ship. And they have added graphics to the MRI machine itself in the room to make it look like in my example here, a pirate's ship. There's other versions for a space going into space. There's a version for going into a submarine journey. But they've physically have redesigned the room just through graphics and the MRI machine just by putting paint or vinyl decals on it to make this now play into a story, changing that experience. Such a great example of what we can do by just rethinking the experience and using a customer journey map. And if you've ever had a kid that have had to get such a thing, that probably feels a little bit heavier to you too, because it does make a difference. That was a lot of ideation tools to go through, and we don't use all of them all the time, right? So let me just give you some examples here of why we might use one in different places. So as an exercise, let's say a team is stuck thinking about the problem the same way that they always have, right? We can't, we're just stuck in our own thinking. There's no new ideas coming up. What might we do to get out of our way to help us think differently? Well, Scamper is a good one that comes to mind, right? Scamper is that acronym tool to help us think about what we can do differently than we haven't done before. How about you're unsure about the customer experience with the product? What is that like, right? Well, let's do a journey map to find out. That would be easy. We could go and do ethnographic research or just basically follow the customer around and do a journey map of their experience to have really good, valuable insights about what their experience was like. And that would give us a certainly help us understand the customer and have empathy for the customer. How about your team needs to consider different perspectives? Well, that's what Six Thinking Hats is all about, right? Different perspectives on this problem from different angles. And as a final one here, brainstorming has become less efficient for the team. What else might you try, right? How do we jazz up our brainstorming and get more value out of it? A lot of people like brainstorming, but again, we have decades of research that tells us it's not very effective for generating ideas. So add NGT, I talked about, right? Just taking those few minutes before we start the actual brainstorming for everyone to write individually ideas, or do brainwriting. And instead of out loud brainstorming, you're doing it on paper, sharing it with the person next to you, they're adding on. We have good tools to help with this, so take advantage of these. The purpose of knowing these ideation tools is so you can pull one out of your proverbial toolbox and use it when the time applies. There are some application questions I wanted to ask you to consider too. Now that we've gone through a number of these tools, what ideation tools have you used or seen before, right? Good to know where you're grounded already. And then think critically about your experience with these techniques and list positive and negative aspects. There might be some tools that simply haven't been the best fit, right? Maybe it's kind of that round peg in the square hole or vice versa, and hasn't been the best fit. So maybe there's a better tool out there that would solve the need that you have. And so if there's some negative aspects, maybe you can find a better tool that would work for you. And maybe we kind of get in a rut over time, like we go to Scamper all the time, go-to tool. Adding a few of these to your toolbox, that could be really helpful for you. I want to talk about another concept in the design and development knowledge area, and that is called concept design. And concept design, where we are is ideation gets us started with a product idea, right? We just covered that. And concept design helps us to build a more detailed description of the product concept, evolving your understanding of that original idea. This is most important for two reasons. First, the deeper understanding provides clarity for members of the product team, of course. And then second, you can begin explaining the concept to potential customers, seeking their views on product benefits and features, and get their feedback on possible changes or improvements. This gives us the opportunity to validate our concepts before we actually start developing, committing bigger resources to something that we may later find out doesn't work. So doing that concept work with customers is really valuable to us. It saves us time later. And some organizations will describe this evolving understanding of the product concept in terms of design specifications and then technical specifications that enable development and manufacturing. Again, we got to put this in the right context. You might not be doing physical products. That might be all you do. A lot of organizations I end up working with are doing both. They're doing hardware, software sort of integration. And there's 5 tools that are helpful for concept design. You might have others that you add to this list, but the knowledge area covers concept engineering, the Kano method, morphological analysis, concept scenarios, and the 𝐼𝐶 method. And obviously the details of each are in the knowledge area. And so if the names don't mean anything to you, that's okay. But for this episode, let's focus on the Kano method. And I've heard this pronounced differently, and I actually don't know what the right way is. It's Kano, Kano. I'm going to go with Kano. It broadly applies to product managers across industries, which is why I want to pull this out for what we're talking about. And what this method does is it classifies product requirements into 3 broad categories. We have the basic requirements, the performance requirements, and those excitement requirements. And we'll talk about each of these, right? So the basic requirements are must-haves. This is what the customer expects that the product will do for them. And without them, there's going to be dissatisfaction, right? They're not going to pay attention to our product and they're going to move on to the competition. These are the basic things that are expected. Then the performance requirements provide the real benefits and enhance the value of the product. Here, More is thought of as better, right? If we can identify what the performance requirements are, the better job we do, the more value the customer perceives from that. This is where we can make a product stand out and beat competitors. And then we have the excitement requirements, generally referred to as the wow effect, right? We're trying to wow our customers. And these are things that the customer may not expect, right? They delight the customer and they provide really superior satisfaction. They increase the overall experience, but since they are not expected, if they're missing, they don't create dissatisfaction, right? The customer won't miss them. So this is an area where we can, if we have resources and time, we can play in to really wow the customer, but we can also, make trade-off decisions here as well. The Kano method is usually implemented as customer surveys to identify the customer requirements so we can figure out where those requirements are. In addition to the three types of requirements I just looked at, the survey strives to uncover the customer's perception for elements of the product in four categories. And let's talk through those four categories. We have attractive quality elements. This is where customers are satisfied when it's present, but they're not dissatisfied if it's missing, right? Attractive. We have one dimension quality elements. These elements show a proportional relationship between functionality and satisfaction. More functionality implies higher levels of satisfaction. Then we have the must be quality elements, and these are the elements that the users expect at a minimum. They don't lead to more satisfaction when fulfilled. If we don't do them at all, they certainly cause dissatisfaction when they're not there. They're the must be's. And then the indifferent quality elements. And these are elements that provide neither satisfaction nor dissatisfaction. Doesn't matter if we fulfill them or not. Consequently, creating these elements is a waste of resources. This is why customer research is so helpful for us. Because if we can identify what is missing, what those unmet needs are the customer has, and then we can start ranking them, there's going to be some things that are unmet that they're probably actually indifferent about. But if we can identify what actually creates more value for them, what is attractive that we could add that would make a difference, then we're really onto something that we can stand out in the competitive marketplace. And Kano is important because it helps you focus on what is most important for creating products that your customers are actually going to love, addressing those requirements. Again, the what we expect, what enhances value, and what creates that wow factor, right? Those three areas. And what we want to do is not waste resources by overshooting customers' expectations. I hear this talked about a lot in product teams and arguably more so from management. Like we got to add quality. Well, what does that mean? What does it mean to add quality? We really need to have a definition of that because quality gets thrown around in many different contexts, right? We try to actually reduce the number of errors that a product goes out with, or the number of errors that we see if we're like on the assembly line and we're pulling the products off and sampling them and testing them. What does quality mean? We don't want to add value to a product that the customer doesn't care about. That's a waste of resources. So understanding these areas of what does the customer expect, what is that those areas where we can actually enhance value to them that would be special for them. But things that they want done. And then what are those things that they're not really expecting from us at all, but if we were able to do them, would create that wow value for them. And not doing things that don't matter. And you hear examples of this when you hear about people talk about a new product and the product manager discussing its product life. And no doubt, we uncover things that we put into the product that the customer actually never cares about. They're hard to get out at that point, right? They're hard to take things out of the product, but we need to if it's not creating value. It's just a drag on our product itself. Okay, so I covered just two things out of the design and development knowledge area, which are tools for ideation and then concept design, only focus on the Kano model. There's others there as well. So there's a lot more in design and development. And once again, the reason that you should know what's in each one of these knowledge areas is so that you are a more full, well-rounded product manager or product leader. We're never going to use all these tools all the time, but it's important for whatever our context is to know what tools are available, because that will help us to do a better job. And it will help us invigorate our team because we're actually focused on the right things, and then create more value for the customer, which means we're creating more value for the organization, and you're doing a better job setting out as well. And I do describe each of these product knowledge areas in more detail in my rapid product mastery training for product managers and leaders. And this design and development area is only one of those 7 knowledge areas for product mastery. Together, all 7 areas help product professionals reach the next step of their professional journey. And no doubt you already know some of the pieces that have helped you, but understanding all 7 areas and how they relate to each other, that's going to fill in the holes from your experience, really equip you to be more effective managing and leading product work. My training program is how you can learn all 7 areas. It does prepare you for greater success in your work, and it also equips you to earn an important professional certification. If you're interested in gaining a certification, that's called the New Product Development Professional Certification. That's the MPDP that PDMA provides. I just provide the training. They provide the certification. They have the credibility for doing that internationally across the world. And I encourage you not to wait on doing your professional development. There's that old saying that I use a lot: the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And I've heard people say they can wait, that they don't need to do it now. They'll wait until the next opportunity is in front of them. That never works out, right? When the opportunity is in front of you, you need to be prepared for it at that time, which means you have to do the work now to be able to prepare for what happens later. So don't wait. Plant the tree now. Learn all 7 knowledge areas. I'm making that easier for podcast listeners. I have a 30% discount for you during the time of the series. I will drop the discount after the series is over. And companies typically reimburse employees for the cost of this training. But if you don't have a company that will do that, this 30% discount will certainly help. Even if your company does pay, you still have to get the discount. Simply use the discount code PODCAST. That's all lowercase PODCAST when you go to productmasterynow.com/RPM to buy the training. Hope you get started on that. I want to leave us with a quote. Discovery consists of seeing what everybody has seen and thinking what nobody has thought. That comes from a scientist and Nobel Prize winner who brought us vitamin C. He was able to isolate vitamin C, many other contributions as well. I'll probably say his name badly, but Albert von Cenz-𝐾𝐭. And I love that quote because this notion of, back to why I love ethnography so much, coupled with doing interviews, doing customer research, consists of seeing what everybody has seen, right? But thinking about that differently, right? Our core need as a product manager is to identify how to create new value that matters to our customers. What are their current unmet needs? What is the job that they want to get done? How can we use the Kano model to satisfy customers and also find ways to delight them, right? To wow them. And this notion of everyone sees what's going on, but there's only a few people that think about that differently, right? And that's our job. So I'll leave you with that as a quote. Thank you so much for listening to this episode and learning more about the 7 knowledge areas for product mastery. If you have any questions for me and want to discuss those 7 knowledge areas in any way, just reach out to me. You can do that through my website. That's productmasterynow.com. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for listening to Product Mastery Now, where product leaders and managers gain product mastery through practical knowledge, influence, and confidence. By listening, you are becoming a product master, creating products customers love. Find additional resources at productmasterynow.com. Keep innovating.